Alrighty, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Timeout with Doc and Caveman. It is the moment you have all been waiting for. We are going to be going over our 2021-22 standings predictions. This was excruciating for me, so
I'm with you there,
there's going to
man.
be some
I'm
hurt
with you there.
feelings. So, as always, you're here with Dr. Fantasy and the Fantasy Caveman. I'm excited, though, to just talk through all the teams. We put a lot of work in analyzing each and every team this year. So, I think it takes like 12 hours of recording time, something like that. So, it definitely takes quite a bit of time, and I enjoy doing it. I think makes me break down teams that normally I don't really care about, but
yeah, we remember we spent 12 hours just recording, but the amount of research we put into each team, and then the amount, to be honest, I feel we both like the amount of thinking that we did putting together these predictions, man. I don't, man, that I don't feel confident in it at all. Disclaimer, I don't feel confident.
And I think it's one of those things that, how many times did I bring up that there's a ton of parity in the NBA? And I think I kept telling myself that, but actually going through and trying to predict out the standings, I'm like, oh, dang, like, yeah, there is a lot of parity and there's a lot of good teams. So, as always, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Or if you listen to the audio version, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, whatever makes you happy. It doesn't matter to me. And make sure you throw this video a like. That helps out the old YouTube algorithm as well. So let's go through the Eastern Conference first. No. Actually, let's go through the Western Conference first because that's not quite as exciting. I struggled a lot more with the East. So I have the West on the right side here, but we'll start off with the West. We're going to go with the first three. Well, we're going to go in reverse here. So the bottom three teams, we almost have the exact same three.
Close.
So I have the Thunder at 15, the Rockets at 14, the Pelicans at 13. You have the Thunder at 15, the Rockets at 14, and the Wolves at 13. So, I think this is going to be fairly chalk no matter who you talk to. The Thunder, obviously rebuilding. The Rockets, I love the direction they're going, and they have a lot of great young talent with Jalen Green there, Kevin Porter. I really like Sengun, who had himself a nice offseason here. They have a lot of just nice, fun, young pieces moving forward. So I don't expect them to stay in the bottom very long. I debated between, and it's probably not going to be surprising that I have the Wolves next at 12, but spoiler alert. But for me, I'm a little worried about the Pelicans with Zion's health already, and I try to factor things like that in. So when Zion comes back, there's still going to be a bottom 5 team in the conference, but he's already going to miss at least the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't think this team's going to be great at all defensively. So already one of their starting guard spots you're kind of questioning with Kira Lewis and Alexander Walker Alexander, whatever, getting the same or getting a lot of playing time. Those are two relative unknowns, and they're going to be relying on them to play a lot of minutes. So that makes me a little nervous, which is why I like the Wolves' talent. They have a nice trio there. So the reason that I have the Pelicans lower is a combination of their defensive ability / Zion's health.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Thunder. There's just no possible way they're gonna do what they did a couple years ago and be the 5 seed in the conference out of nowhere. Not gonna happen. Okay, lightning does not strike twice for the Thunder. Okay.
Oh gosh.
No.
If that happens, I'm never recording again.
The Rockets, like you said it with their young talent. I think this is a situation with the Rockets where we're probably looking at they might be able to. They have so much talent, they may be able to make a big jump year 2. Like this might be okay. This year is going to be a kind of a feeling out there, and then next year, I think you could see them creep up into the 9-10 spot easily. And then I did these, and then I didn't look at them after I officially did them, so I'm not quite sure where I have the Pelicans. I'm pretty sure they're within my next spot or two, but yeah, with the Wolves, I think it's a matter of I think we've seen this Karl-Anthony Towns and Russell pairing for a couple seasons now, and it's just not working. I don't think they have very good on-court chemistry. And honestly, it doesn't seem like the Wolves are that interested in keeping Russell around. There's been a lot of rumors circulating about moving him. A lot of rumors about him surrounding a deal between him and Ben Simmons, and kind of the Wolves are in that category. So just a lot of too much uncertainty for me. I mean, I know they have a nice trio. They have on paper they have a nice trio. When you throw Anthony Edwards in there, and that even a nice four if you throw in Malik Beasley, who I think who can take another step forward. But it's the Western Conference. They have one super. I don't even know if Karl-Anthony Towns is a superstar at this point.
That's tough.
2 years ago, a lot of people would have said so, but I think they're a team that's a lot better on paper than they actually are, on the court. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Let's go to the next three here. All right. So we're pretty much on the same page here.
Okay, okay. See, yeah, we already know that we already like I mentioned, like I was mentioning before. Like the West is general. I mean, where with the general spots, but we kind of know. So it seems like we do have the same top 9. We do have the same top 9 teams in some kind of order. So
yeah, yep.
Yeah, this was the most interesting thing to me doing the West was who was gonna grab that 10 seed, which is important because obviously with the play-in. I mean the Pelicans. You already mentioned it with the Pelicans. I think you can flip the Pelicans and Wolves. The Spurs. I mean, and then we have the Spurs and Kings flipped. So for me, I think it's a matter of the Kings just have a little bit more talent on the roster, I would say. I mean, props to Greg Popovich. I would love to see, Greg Popovich try to make another run at it, but honestly, they don't. I think the time has ran out on the Spurs. We saw the downfall last year. It's not pretty. I'm not saying Popovich should retire, but maybe he should. I mean, maybe that's really a conversation we need to have at this point. But the Spurs just don't have the talent, and especially in the Western Conference, there's a lot of younger teams. Even though Zion is out of shape right now, I mean, the Pelicans still have more talent on paper than the Spurs, so I could see the Pelicans possibly jumping them as well. But the Spurs at this point, I honestly don't see them making the top 10. And with the Kings, I like what they're doing. I like De'Aaron Fox is a dog. And then they got I like Marvin Bagley to try to turn it around. You know I'm a big Halliburton guy as well. And then I like what I've seen from Davion Mitchell in the preseason. He looked good running with the starters the other night. So I like that. I think he's gonna play a key piece. He's gonna play a key piece for them as well this season. I like them to try to sneak into that 10 spot.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one team that I think could surprise people and break into the playoffs in the top 8 even, I think it is the Kings, because I think they're building just a well-rounded team too. I mean, you have Rashawn Holmes there down in the paint.
Yep.
You have Bagley, as you mentioned, but then they also have some veterans coming off the bench. Tristan Thompson's there, going to be
Yep.
coming off the second unit. I'm interested to see what happens with Buddy Yield, because you talk about this team's backcourt. I mean, right now there's a ton of depth with Buddy Yield still hanging around. When you talk about Halliburton and Fox and Davion Mitchell and Buddy Yield, I mean, there's quite a bit of depth there. So I'm interested to see how that backcourt shakes out. But you can't deny that they have a ton of talent in that backcourt, which, that's a big part of today's game. I think defensively they'll be better. They weren't very good last season, but even a guy, Mo Harkless can step it up in that regard too, coming off of their bench.
Davion Mitchell
and Davion Mitchell.
That, and we know Davion Mitchell is probably the best defender among the guards in the draft. So we know he's gonna bring that. We know he's gonna bring a defensive upgrade for them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest difference is I think this is more of a giving respect.
You're giving Pop.
I am a little bit, because I think he realizes that his coaching style doesn't mesh well with today's modern NBA, and he kind of said in the preseason this year, like, I'm letting the young kids play. And I was like, you know what? I kind of think that's smart of him, because I think the game has passed him by. And I mean, people can hate on that, but I'm a Spurs fan.
That means?
And
that means we get to see some of your boy Josh Primo this season.
I mean, that's a terrible idea, but I mean, I think the biggest thing that is going to hurt them is, even last season they were the 10 seed, but DeMar DeRozan was at least a veteran stabilizing presence. They don't have that anymore. When you're looking at this team, people are assuming Keldon Johnson's going to take the next step forward and be a big part of this team. But once again, he's got to do it still. I don't care if he traveled with the Olympic team. He did all this great stuff. He's got to put his money where his mouth is, and he has to show that there's some validation to that hype. So there's still a lot for him.
A lot of pressure.
He's been DeJounte Murray. He hasn't really, I won't say he hasn't shown a lot of progress, but honestly, he's been
He needs to take, yeah, but the problem is he needs to take a jump.
Yeah, no, he has to decide, is he going to be a quality high-end role player, or is he going to be a guy they build a team around? I mean, that's the reality, because right now they're trying to build it around Murray and Keldon and then just filling in pieces around them. Is that a winning formula? I don't know. I mean, these are two very young guys, so I don't think you can say no yet.
The problem is, even if Pop wants to go more modern, they don't have modern NBA players on their team, really.
Not really.
So
it's more, I think that, you at least have to respect them, but I will say, based on this roster, I wouldn't be surprised if they were bottom 3 in the conference, if we want to be honest about it. Just from a straight talent perspective, you could argue they're the second least talented team behind the Thunder. I'll go, and I don't think that's that.
At least the Thunder have I think the Thunder have a legit. Shai's not there, but Shai can reach superstar status this season.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. He definitely has that potential. So we're on the same page so far. Let's go to the next.
This is where it might get a little interesting.
We'll see, maybe. Dang, you have the Blazers out of it. All right. Well, that's
they're
happened.
9th.
I mean, but you're saying that they're not going to win in the play-in tournament, essentially. So they'll be there.
No, I'm saying this is their fine. This is where I see them. I kind of did mine prior to the play-in.
Okay, see, I did mine the opposite. So this is assuming the results after the playoff or the play-in tournaments for me. So I'm assuming the Blazers and the Clippers play themselves into a playoff spot. So we've talked about the Clippers. It's a matter of when Kawhi comes back. if he comes back later in the season, they're going to be the toughest 8 seed that any conference has ever seen in the history of the NBA. But I think the reality is you're going to see them 6, 7, 8 somewhere in that span. And once they get Kawhi back, obviously they're going to be legitimate title contenders. Sets up a very interesting first round matchup if they're the 8th seed. The Grizzlies, it's one of those things. I think the Grizzlies have the talent to be a playoff. I mean, I won't even say the talent. They have a lot of depth. We talked a lot about Ja and Jaren Jackson needing to take another step forward. If those two take another step forward together, this is a team that I wouldn't shock me if somehow they ended up in the 6th seed and they played themselves into that spot, especially with question marks around I mean, even the Warriors with Clay not knowing when he's going to be back, with the Clippers, with even are we confident the Lakers are going to stay healthy? So would it surprise me if the Grizzlies play themselves higher? Honestly, no. But when you just look at the talent on paper, it's hard for me to put them above other teams. I mean, they have the coaching, they have depth, they play good defense, but it's hard for me to put them much higher than this. So I have them as the first team out. The Clippers, I mentioned. Trailblazers, I'm still not confident in them defensively. I mean, to me, the way that they're constructed now, they're just a really tough first round playoff matchup. That's all they are to me. I don't think they have the chance to make a long run until they make some moves for that roster.
Yeah, the Blazers down at 9 for me is more of a teams like the Grizzlies getting better. You know, even a team. It wouldn't shock me. It honestly wouldn't shock me if the Kings jump them. That's very possible. But the Grizzlies, I honestly could see the Grizzlies finishing a spot or two higher than this, if we're being honest. Like you said, if you look at all these teams so far that have potential, I think the Grizzlies have the most potential out of any of these teams so far, other than the Clippers, who you have at 8. Out of all the teams that we've unveiled that have been unveiled on our side so far, I think the Grizzlies have some of the best potential out of any of them. I mean, Ja's electric. Jaren Jackson, I think, is going to take a step forward this season. They got a bunch of good, solid players. Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Steven Adams. A lot of people were questioning how Steven Adams was going to fit in. Hey, Steven Adams, I don't know how much Grizzlies preseason you watch. I watched a bit. Steven Adams looks good in this Grizzlies team.
He's fine. That's all I have to say.
I mean, he's fit in well. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just gotta. Their squad is, if they can just take the next step. If Jaren Jackson can take the next step, if Ja can take the next step, if we can see a little more improvement from guys like Anderson and Brooks, I can see this team. I can see this team possibly making a very tough first round matchup for one of the top couples teams.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure about the Grizzlies, no matter who they're playing, they're going to play them tough. So.
Yep.
All right, let's go the next 3 here. I have the Warriors at 6, the Mavericks at 5, the Lakers at 4, because I'm that guy. You have the Nuggets at 6, the Warriors at 5, and the Clippers at 4. For me, the Warriors will be a tough, but we don't know when Clay is coming back. When Clay comes back, this is one of the top few teams in the conference. So if they had a healthy Clay all year, they'd probably be a top 3 seed for me. But this is, you knock them down a few pegs just because they're not going to be at full strength all year. The Mavericks, I mentioned, I have a few spots higher than you. I just like the signing of Reggie Bullock. I think this team is going to be a lot better defensively this year. I think Luka is on a mission to prove that he is more than just numbers at this point. You know, he had an impressive first round last year, but I think this is a team for me that is the most likely to make a run in the playoffs that people aren't expecting. Kind of Hawks-esque last year. I just think they're going to be a lot better defensively. I do think that if Porzingis kind of crumbles this season, that you could see them not finish this high. But if everything clicks for them, I think they have the talent to do it. The Lakers, for me, one of the reasons, you mentioned it quite a bit in this episode, or the Lakers episode. I don't think that this combo is going to click, in my opinion. And second, I just don't have that much faith in them staying healthy, if we're being honest about it. And they can say they have a ton of depth, but if you take any of their big three out of the picture, I mean, this isn't a team. This is a 4-seeded team, honestly. I mean, that's, in my opinion. Yes, they have Carmelo and all these old guys, but if you go from LeBron to starting, there's a big difference there. So I'm not confident in this team.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, Rita, you obviously have the Nuggets as a top 3 seed. That's a little surprising because you mentioned that the Warriors are going to be without Clay. The Nuggets are going to be without Jamal Murray to start the season as well. Jokic is Jokic. Jokic is a superstar, a top 5 player in the league. And they have a nice, well-rounded team. I think this is more of a, okay, the Nuggets are good, which is why I have them at 6, but they need Jamal Murray. In the West, and you mentioned the West is tough. As much as we agonized over the East, the West, I still think the West is the better conference still overall. I think they got more of the superstars over in the conference. You know how I feel about Golden State.
I don't.
Oh, really? Do we need me to go on a soliloquy about Golden State?
Nope.
No? I know it's going to depend. A lot of this is going to depend on when Clay comes back. If Clay comes back a bit sooner than expected, they're going to finish in the top 3, depending on when he comes back. And all 3 of my teams, these are the 3 teams with the huge injuries, their stars. But the Clippers, the Warriors, and the Nuggets. The 3-star. With the Clippers, I think Paul George is ready to push that whole image behind him of him not being a clutch player and him kind of that. I mean, he showed up last year when Kawhi went down, but he's still a lot of people are still like having their doubts about him. I think Paul George has a chance to win MVP this year. I think he has that type of season in him, especially with a lot of it gonna be without Kawhi Leonard. We don't know when he's coming back, so I just think with the Heat, and they have a bunch of talent. They have a bunch of talent around him. I think Terrence Mann is gonna take another step forward as well. Reggie Jackson proved how valuable he is to this team. Even a guy like Zubac, has proved his worth. Marcus, they have a lot of depth as well, and I think Paul George leading that attack as an MVP candidate is why I'd have them up at 4.
Yeah, I definitely think that's reasonable. Let's see. Let's go to the top 3 then. All right. We have the same top 2. That's not exciting, but the Suns at 1, the Jazz at 2, Denver at 3. I'm a big fan of Denver, obviously. Jamal Murray obviously is a big piece of that, but I still think this is a team that's on a mission from 2 years ago. I think that they can make a lot of noise in the playoffs. I think if Michael Porter takes another step forward, I think a lot of that can almost nix the loss of Jamal Murray. I'm not saying it completely makes up for it. And one of the things I do want to mention that I haven't yet is, so I looked at strength of schedule too. I know that's going a little further, but the Lakers had the hardest schedule this entire season, which is one of the reasons I had them slipping further than other people too. And same with the Nuggets. Actually have a fairly easy strength of schedule the first half of the year when Jamal Murray's out. So I think they're going to be able to be better than people think. So there was a little strategy here for me too, just so people aren't like, you're crazy. So I definitely recognize Jamal Murray's impact, but I think they'll be able to make up for it with Porter / the early season. I mean, the Suns and Jazz, they're both well-rounded teams. They have all the pieces to make a championship run. I don't really have much else to say, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, for me, the reality is, while the Lakers, you can question whether they're going to stay healthy all year, but the reality is 3 superstars is 3 superstars.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron, I mean, they're, at least they're saying all the right things. Whether that's going to improve the on-court chemistry, we'll have to see, but there's still there's still a situation where this isn't last year where, you know, either LeBron was hurt or Anthony Davis was hurt. Now they got LeBron, AD, and Russ. So now they have a better chance of at least having 2 superstars healthy at the same time, even if they don't have all 3. You know, whether, you know, the mix and match who's actually going to be healthy. So I think that's going to elevate them. You know, like you said, they have, while they're certainly, seems like they're running a retirement home at this point on their squad, they still, I mean, say what you want about it, they easily have the best depth probably in the league, and it's not even close. Like, the amount
I'll give them second best. I still like the Jazz, but
okay, but the argument, their depth
still
is insane. Like, as long as they have 2 of their 3 superstars healthy, they're going to be just fine. And then the Jazz, look, a lot of people, it's still the Jazz are still like, the Jazz are still the Jazz. I mean, we talked about it when we did their episode. They didn't really change. They kind of, they have Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell as their leaders, which I'm glad they were able to put all that, their whole thing, at least behind them, at least on the court. But I really think Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. I don't think that's unreasonable to say. With him and with the team they have around him, we talked about they have 2 of the best bench players in the league, in Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles, and we talked about them for like half an hour when we did the Jazz episode. But the reality is the Jazz are such a well-rounded team. They play insanely good defense, and that's gonna keep them in a lot of games. And I think they have enough scoring to get by. So I really, that's why they're just such a well-rounded team. So that's why I have them. And then the Suns. I mean, how can you not have the Suns as one of the top 2 teams? Like, what did they didn't do anything wrong this offseason. So, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about them. We talked at length about both teams in our individual team breakdown. So let's go over then to the Eastern Conference.
This is it.
Which is antagonizing.
Ooh, man.
There's going to be a lot of hurt feelings. But
I tinkered more than Ruxin tinkered on the league. Okay?
I
had, like, I'm not even joking. I probably had about 20 drafts of this Eastern Conference lineup.
And I'm still not happy with the end result, but whatever.
Me neither.
All right. Our bottom 3 here. At number 15, I have the Magic. 14.
Oh, shocker! I knew this. I knew we were gonna have the same
13.
number 15.
That's not shocking. Number 13, the Cavs. Yeah, I mean, the Magic, I think I like what they're doing. They're building a really tough-minded team. Even though I don't expect them to finish very high in the conference, they're not going to be an easy win every night because I think this is a team that's being built with a lot of fight. The Pistons, they'll be up in the playoffs next season or the season after. This is a team that's going to be built to win a championship in the next few years if Cade Cunningham lives up to expectations. And then the Cavs, really the big thing with the Cavs for me personally is that I just don't have faith in them defensively. I think offensively they're going to be fine, especially with adding Markkanen, who was an addition even after we did that team preview. I just think defensively they still could be the worst team in the league, so that's going to be a consistent issue for them all season.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm very interested to see where you have Washington because I have them down at 14. So, with the Magic, yeah, I mean, defensively they're going to be solid, but offensively they're going to. They have the least offensive potential in the entire league. Maybe is what we're looking at here. They don't really have any true scorers. The Wizards, I mean, look, Bradley Beal is still there. He says he wants to remain in Washington, which I don't know why, but, I don't know. I have to see it to believe it with Spencer Dinwiddie being able to be a true point guard and being able to, lead a team in that way. Other than that, I still don't think they're going to be that good. They're not. I don't care who they are. They're still the Wizards. They're still going to not. They might not be as bad defensively, but they're not. I don't think they're going to be that improved, if we're being honest. And with the Pistons, look, this is the team I struggle with the most. I am very high on Cade Cunningham, as a lot of people are. I love the direction this team is going with him and Grant and Sadiq Bey. I love the direction this team is going. And I wanted so bad to put them in the top 10, but I just could not bring myself to do it. One of my drafts, I had them in the top 10. It was like, oh, this looks so bad. I can't do it. So, but yeah, the Pistons, this is them. Them and the Rockets are in similar boats for me. Very, very coincidental since they had the first 2 picks in the draft that they're in similar boats. But that's the reality is they got their high draft picks and both of them have sky high potential. And if those guys live up to their potential, I think this is a situation where both the Cavaliers and the Rockets could be in the playoffs come next year.
Yeah, I definitely think that's reasonable. All right, here comes the real hate. Oh, dang, all right, I don't feel as bad about the Knicks. You have them pretty low, too. All right, I feel okay.
I thought I was low on the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't feel great about it because this was the number 4 team in the conference last year. But I really don't like.
Wow, you are going to get being New York for this one.
I know, I'm freaking from New York too. But what can I say? I'm not a loyal New Yorker. So I have the Knicks at 12, the Wizards at 11, the Pacers at 10, which I think can be slightly disrespectful as well. You have the Cavs.
How many fan bases can you upset in one episode?
I'm trying for every single one. That I'm succeeding. Okay, so the Knicks. Yeah, I don't like Kemba there. One of the things that I'm concerned with, we've seen with Tom Thibodeau run teams that over the course of his coaching tenure, they gradually get worse. And one of the reasons, which we've talked about, is he runs his players into the ground. And I'm a little concerned that fatigue's going to run over. And in especially this Eastern Conference, I'm not even kidding you. I think the top 12 teams I have here could all make the playoffs. I could make a playoff case for all of them. I know you're not that high on the Wizards, but I personally am. I think that they're going to be a lot better defensively. I like Wes Unseld as a coach. I think he's going to do a great job. Even though they lost Westbrook, this was a team that was 8th seed last year, and I think all the pieces that they brought in defensively make them an overall better roster. I think it's similar to what the Hawks did with Trae last year. They had Trae Young and brought in a bunch of defenders. I think they have Bradley Beal there, and they brought in a bunch of defenders. I wanted to put the Wizards even higher, but I couldn't find a place to put them any higher. That was my.
Same way with
I
Detroit,
still
man.
believe the Wizards could make the playoffs this year, but I couldn't. I don't know. I didn't find anywhere I could do it. The Pacers, the only thing I'm concerned with them once again is their health. I feel like this is slightly disrespectful to Rick Carlisle because I think that was a great hire. I think he can do great things with this team, but I feel like I just haven't seen them put it all together yet. A is my number one concern, and B, it just comes down to how talented the conference is. If we're being honest about it, is TJ Warren, if he was fully healthy and he was bubble TJ Warren, I think I would have had this team like 5th in the conference. But they have a lot of issues potentially at the wing spot. Without TJ Warren, they're sliding a Holiday at the wing spot, which leaves them very thin on the bench. So I'm a little concerned about that.
LeVert got hurt again.
Yep, I saw LeVert is out as well. So I'm a little worried about them being banged up. And if we're being honest about it, that could propel them towards I don't want to say the bottom of the conference because they'll still have Sabonis and Brogdon, which is a really nice duo. But I think they could be. I think their depth is being tested right now. And yes, they had depth, but if you're losing 2 key pieces already, I mean, that's tough to overcome for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. I don't even know where I have the Pacers, man. I don't even know which draft this is. All I know is it's my final draft. I don't know.
This could change literally right now.
We're gonna find out together where I have. I don't even know. But yeah, I mean, with the I wanted to put the Cavaliers are another team I wanted to put higher. I mean, I like what they're doing. I mean, I don't know how much longer this Sexton and Garland pairing's gonna be around. But you got him. You got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen up in that front court. I love that pairing personally.
Kevin Love.
You got Okoro there. You got Markkanen. Now all of a sudden they have some real solid depth up in the front court. And then you still got Sexton and Garland for however long they're together. You mentioned you even bring in a guy like Ricky Rubio as well. I mean, this is a team I know I have them at 12, but could they sneak into the top 10? Absolutely, I think they could. I think it's in their cards. The Raptors, I mean, look, I mean, man, this is the one where at least I'll probably get some hate, especially since when we did our Raptors ones, like the most viewed team,
those Canadians are passionate.
Those two, they are, man. We got so much hate on that one. I mean, look, Siakam's star player. I mean, they still got. I just can't get there with them. I mean, Scotty Barnes is going to be nice. I'm gonna still brag that I got that Scotty Barnes pick right in the draft. But I mean, I think this is a product much like the Indiana Pacers for you. I think this is more of a product of the conference being tougher. I just chalk it up to just not being a believer right now. I think they have to. They kind of have to prove it. They kind of have to prove it to you. But I think the loss of Kyle Lowry can't be understated. I mean, I know they have Fred VanVleet who's going to take over the primary ball handling duties, but Kyle Lowry is a big loss. I don't care. He was the heart and soul of that team, and that's just not something that's easily replaced. I think that kind of is underrated a bit in terms of an impact on the team.
Yeah, I definitely could see Kyle Lowry having a pretty big impact not being there. I think, well, I'll talk about the Raptors more, I guess, in a second because they're going to be in my next three here. Oh, let's do the next three here.
Spoiler!
I know, I don't have them that high. All right. I do have the Hornets at number 9, as do you. I flip-flop between the Hornets and Raptors quite a bit, actually. I like the I think the Hornets can easily make the playoffs if we're being honest about it. I think they're going to be much improved. Well, if they actually weren't terrible defensively, I think they could be a top 12 defensive team this year. If LaMelo keeps evolving, they have a lot of. They're still young too, though. I mean, that's the one thing people have to remember about this team. They're very young, so if they don't make the playoffs this year, it's not necessarily a failure. But
what else do you need?
Yeah, I'm not touching that. But I mean, the one that I struggled with the most was actually this Raptors and Hornets decision because I think the Hornets can make the playoffs. I mean, they have a good coach in place. I think Borrego's a great coach. They have a potential superstar player in the making. They have a lot of youth, a lot of depth. I think a guy like Kelly Oubre makes a big difference on the defensive end. So I really want to put them in. But the reality with the Raptors last season is this was a top 4 team in the conference last year before COVID kind of messed with their entire schedule. No team was more heavily impacted by COVID last year than the Raptors. They had a ton of games canceled and moved, and they had the most starting lineups of any team last year. They're already in Canada, so I mean,
they couldn't play
I think that
last year.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. I mean, their whole if we're being honest, it was just a messed up year for the Raptors, so I don't think it's a true reflection of this team. Yes, Kyle Lowry is gone. I mean, he missed about 30 games last season, so, he was there, but I think this team is better.
30 games at some point.
Basically, and that's why I think if this team's fully healthy, I do like their depth with Dragic if he's starting or coming off the bench. I liked what Gary Trent did, Scotty Barnes, Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa. He didn't look great.
He looked he didn't look just not great. He looked awful.
I don't read into the goddamn preseason.
You don't read into it at all?
No, I don't care about the preseason. Nope. I know. I'm a bad person. What can I say? Yeah, I don't know. I just think that it's a small sample size. I mean, just like anybody can have a small stretch of games where they're not very good. So, I mean, I wouldn't read too much into it unless it carries into, the first 20, 30 games of the season. Maybe then we can go, what's going on here? But I'm not going to go nuts yet. But I think this team is better than what their record indicated last year. And I think that they can at least fight for those 4 play-in spots there. So that's at least a reasonable place. 76ers will probably be semi-surprising that I have them as low as 7. One of the things that I worry about with an organization like this is just the locker room. If we're being honest about it, if you take Ben Simmons away, sure, this is still a playoff team, but there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of question marks. I'm a little worried. It's similar to what the Rockets last year. We both kind of had the. I mean, he reported, but yeah, right. But he reported. Jesus, yeah, Caveman, come on. No sarcasm at all. But yeah, I'm just very worried about this locker room. And similar to we saw, I mean, they're more talented than the Rockets were last season, but the Rockets absolutely collapsed with this kind of negativity. And I don't think that it's going to be as hard of a fall, but I think this team's going to fall below expectations based on that. I think that's one of the most underrated pieces that people evaluate in sports is locker room chemistry, and this feels like a toxic locker room right now, which is the reason I have them lower.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Well, I'm pretty sure I have them in the next group, so I'll talk about them more then. But the Hornets, man, you know, I wanted to put them a lot higher than this. And this is, remember, for me, we did it differently. This is, spoiler alert, when we get to our playoff predictions, the Hornets are in there for me. Just gonna say that right now. But this is, I mean, I did mine play-in. So, I mean, with the Hornets, I mean, how can you not be encouraged off of last season? I mean, they made the play-in. They made the play-in last season. So, did they get worse? No, I think they got better, especially with the addition of Kelly Oubre, LaMelo Ball was for as much as some people, not cough Jordan, get tired of people talking about LaMelo Ball. The reality is when you come into the league with as high of expectations as LaMelo did, and he is able to deliver on those expectations, I mean, that's impressive in of itself to be able to deliver on those expectations. So I think he's primed to take another step forward. You got real quality depth there. Rozier, a guy I know he's a guy you're high on. I like a Rozier and LaMelo pairing in the backcourt. You got PJ Washington, James Bouknight, rough preseason, but I think he's gonna be able to figure it out. I like the Hornets team where the direction they're going. With Indiana, I mean, I feel like anytime Indiana isn't a top 4 or 5 seed is a disappointment based on the talent they have on paper. This is a team that we've been talking about for the past several seasons that just for whatever reason, whether it be injuries, guys not living up to expectations, they're constantly underwhelming every season, it seems like. And to me, 8 is underwhelming for them. Having them at 10 to me is a little low. Because there's just way too much talent on this team to finish that low, in my opinion. But the Bulls, and I'm upset because I'm more upset about this right here that you're higher on the Bulls than I am. That's upsetting. I'm just gonna say it. I am very upset. I don't know if I'm more upset at you or I'm more upset at myself for not having the Bulls higher. I don't know which. But me, I thought I loved the Bulls this season, but I guess I don't because I only have them at 7. So what do I know?
You're a hater.
Yep, I must be. Upsetting.
All right, let's go to the next 3 then. Do I have the Bulls in this group? Oh, I don't. What do you know? All right. At number 6, I have the Atlanta Hawks. At number 5, I have the Celtics. And number 4, I have the Nets. I'm surprised that we have. I thought that was going to be low. But I think that this is a team, the Nets, that's just going to want to cruise through the regular season. I mean, without Kyrie, of course, that makes them not a definite, for sure, top 2 team.
I think with Kyrie, they're a top 2. But
yeah, I would have had him at number 2. As much as I'm not a fan of Kyrie, he makes them that much better. So, I think this is a team that just, like I said, I think they're going to cruise. This is a team that is they're going to take off days and they're going to try to just get themselves into the playoffs at the end of the day. That's what I think the reality is. The Celtics, I think, are going to be a lot better this season. I think that'd be a very interesting 4 or 5 matchup because I think that the Celtics actually would have more potential to upset the Nets, and people give them credit.
Especially if Kyrie comes back. Yep.
And if Kyrie did play somehow, him against the Celtics in the playoffs would make me very happy because that ended very poorly.
I want him to be out the whole season up until the playoffs, and then he randomly decides to get vaccinated, and then he comes back and plays against the Celtics.
That would be really fun. Don't get me wrong. So I'm all for that.
This is surprising for me. You have the Hawks all the way down at 6.
Yeah, and if we're being honest about it, if we're saying what's the reason, once again, it comes down to me looking at the teams ahead of them. I I think that the Hawks are a team that are going to be overvalued too because of their postseason. And that's not to say they're not talented, but they went on a really strong run. I don't think, do I anticipate them being that good for 82 games, an entire regular season? I don't. So I think that when we're looking at the 4, 5, 6 teams, and if we're being honest about it, they're interchangeable for me. When you're looking at, I forget last season, I think the 4, 5, and 6 teams all had the 4 and 5 had the same record, and then the 6 seed had one game behind them.
Yeah, they were. I
so to
remember
me,
super close.
what does it really matter at the end of the day? You know, I have them. If they
all the Atlanta Hawks fans are gonna see is that you have them at 6.
To me, it's a combination of strength of schedule. You know, are we confidently putting them above the Nets even without Kyrie? Not confidently, but I think the Celtics are going to be better defensively than the Hawks. They have superstars. So, I mean, it's a good debate all around. All three of them are playoff teams. So you're just nitpicking at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised there you have the Hawks down to 6, but what do I know? At this point, I'm still upset that you have the Bulls. You have the Bulls in the top 3.
Maybe I just forgot to put the Bulls in here.
You put some team twice.
I just have the Bucks at 1 and 2, actually.
But yeah, I mean, with the Sixers, I mean, I don't see them falling below 6 simply because I think Joel Embiid is the type of guy, and he said the type of things, even publicly now at this point, where I think he's not going to allow this team to spiral. I think he's the type of guy that can kind of rally the team and not allow it to become such a big distraction. I mean, aside from, you know, every player is going to be asked after every game what's their thoughts about Ben Simmons not being there. I mean, that's gonna be unavoidable this season. But on the court, I don't expect it to affect them a ton. As far as that's concerned, I just think them down at 6 doesn't really have a lot to do with Ben Simmons. I think it has the fact I just think the 5 teams above them are just better. Flat out. I think that's what it comes down to. The Celtics, look, Jaylen Brown's going to become a superstar this year. He's another guy for me that's going to take that jump. Him and Tatum, Tatum's a superstar, I think. I think a superstar pairing along with a guy like Dennis, and I love guys that have a chip on their shoulder. And if there's any guy this offseason that has a chip on their shoulder, it's Dennis Schroeder, the guy that famously turned down $100 million and now signed a 1-year deal for like 5.8. So I think he has a lot to prove to try to regain value. So I think him with them together. I mean, the Celtics always play well as a team. I think they have some of the best. They still have some of the best team chemistry in the league, which I think is something that's not easy to come by. It's hard to find a team that meshes as well as the Celtics do. They just seem to have the on-court chemistry. I mean, and then the Nets, I mean, look, you have 2 superstars for sure that are going to be playing this season in Kevin Durant and James Harden. And look, James Harden, now with the full season under his belt, being the primary ball handler and point guard of this team, and we got, as much as it pains me to say this, we got to remember that the Nets were a Kevin Durant size 15 shoe away from making the Eastern Conference Finals last year.
I mean, it's true.
I mean, it's true. So I'll admit that. But I mean, the reality is the Nets are, even if they're at it don't really matter. The Nets are, like I said, the Nets are gonna almost coast similar to. I think this similar to the Lakers in the West. I think the Lakers are just gonna try to coast through the playoffs. Just try to get healthy. I think the key for the Nets, especially without Kyrie, is just trying to get through the season with Kevin Durant and James Harden healthy. I think it's one of those where their final seed isn't going to be indicative of where they really rank in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think that's definitely reasonable. All right, let's go to the top 3.
If you have the Bulls at 1, I'm shutting this down.
I have them at number 3. All right. I have the Bulls at 3, the Heat at 2, and the Bucks at number 1.
Number 1 seed, yeah.
I know, that's shock. We have in both conferences actually. So
really, yeah.
I mean, maybe not that surprising. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people have the Suns number 1. I still see the Lakers, but whatever. All right, so I don't need to talk about the Bulls because obviously that's chalk them being number 3. No.
Clearly.
I mentioned it a lot on that episode. I think this team can go to the NBA Finals. I'll just say it, whatever. I think that I love the pairing. I mean, honestly, all the way around. People keep talking about Lonzo and Levine and DeRozan. You have 3 great ball handlers, 3 guys who have all said, we're going to be unselfish and do what it takes to win here in Chicago. So I think these guys are committed to winning. And let's remember that Vukovic is still there too. People aren't remembering that they have another all-star that's just kind of hanging around that they acquired midseason last year.
Remember me?
Yeah, I mean, for real. So so they have arguably the best starting 5 in the league. Arguably, I won't say definitely, but I think they're in contention for it with Lonzo and Levine and DeRozan and Vukovic. When Patrick Williams is healthy, he'll slide in defensively as a nice pairing as well. They have a primary ball handler off the bench with Kobe White. He has been a little banged up, but when he comes back, they will have a great ball handler coming off the bench. I think Caruso provides a lot of great depth for them. They have guys like Derek Jones. Tony Bradley is going to be great coming off the bench behind Vukovic. Elijah Johnson had a fantastic preseason. I think he's going to play a more valuable role than people think. So I think they have depth. They have a great coaching. They have star-level players. I think they're going to be good defensively. I think they're going to be a good three-point shooting team. They have all the elements for me that you need to make a run. So I think that they could potentially make a run. I won't say they're going to win the championship. I don't even have them. One of the hardest decisions was, spoiler, I don't have them going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I literally think I was banging my keyboard because I wanted to so bad, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. For me, the biggest reason, I was not sold on the Miami Heat when we did that episode, but after watching those guys, or Kyle Lowry and Bam gel in the preseason, I'm sold. I mean, I think that
the preseason matters.
I don't care. It doesn't always matter, but when you see gelling like that, usually, especially with chemistry takes a lot of time to develop. And they had, it seemed, instantly. And I also think that Bam, he had a lot of muscle. If you haven't seen Bam, I think that he could take himself to an even different level this year. And I don't want to say, kind of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good comparison. I still think that he can be Anthony Davis-like. And I don't know if he's going to quite take that step forward, but I still think he can become that level of player. And so I wasn't sold on the Heat. I'm still slightly worried that they don't have enough depth. If Kyle Lowry went down and he's been banged up over the last few years, this pick could completely implode, if we're being honest about it. But if Kyle Lowry in this unit stays healthy, Tyler Hero stays hot, or I don't even want him to stay hot. I want him to be more consistent.
You mean the same Tyler Hero that thinks he's on the level of Ja Morant and Trae Young?
Yeah, he's Luka. He's better than Luka. No, but he's got to actually be more consistent. I don't want him to stay hot. He was kind of, he scores 40 one night, then he misses 23-pointer. He's got to just be more consistent. But yeah, I mean, if they stay healthy, I think they can make a nice run. And then the Bucks, I mean, they're the Bucks. What are you going to say? They're defending champs until otherwise proven wrong. I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams. They gel well. They have Giannis. They are what they are. They're going to be one of the best teams.
They brought Yeah, and there's not much else you can say. I mean, to me, I agree. What upsets me is I agree with everything you said about the Bulls. For me personally, I think it's going to take a year for them to take that kind of leap. That's the only thing. I think it's going to take them a year. I think it's going to take them a while to be, actual contenders. But I love everything. I hope you are right about the Bulls and where they finished at the end of the season. I really do. Look, with the Heat, and back when we did our Heat episode, I was the one that was high on the Heat, and you were the negative Nancy about them.
I was.
Yeah, you were. I think the reality is, I knew with the type of players that Jimmy and Kyle Lowry are, I kind of figured it would be fairly easy for them to click, just given their personalities and their willingness to win, and the fact that the Miami Heat genuinely wanted Kyle Lowry and felt he was kind of their missing piece. I think that's something. Kyle Lowry is the type of player that's going to respond well when he's appreciated. And then Bam, I look at Bam taking another step forward. I mean, him and Jimmy are a great pairing already, and then you add Kyle Lowry into it. I think that's one of the best trios in the league. The Hawks, I know your concern about them is, can they do what they did last season over an extended period of time? I mean, I look at this team, they have all the elements. They have a superstar in Trae Young. They have a perfect, match made in heaven type big man to go with him, and John Collins. I mean, talk about box office and highlight reel. You watch John Collins and Trae Young in the pick and roll, and that's just magical. They got Deandre Hunter, which the reality is Deandre Hunter, in my opinion, is one of the best defenders in the league. You got him on that team. You got Okungwu, who we really haven't had a great chance to see yet. You got guys like Gallinari still coming off the bench. You got Kevin Huerter, who is Rydog's favorite player for some reason that I don't understand. I mean, we both know why, but I mean, they got all the elements to. I mean, they made the Eastern Conference Finals last season. I don't think there's any reason to suspect they can't do it again. I mean, we also got to remember Trae Young was severely hobbled in that series versus Milwaukee. I mean, he kind of gutted it out, which they needed him to. I think that is going to be, if something holds the Hawks back, it's going to be them relying too much on Trae Young. They are going to have to find somebody else to take a little bit of load off Trae Young. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, I expect them to be a top 3 seed in the East. And then the Bucks, I mean, there really isn't much else to say. I think they did. I mean, the loss of PJ Tucker, who we didn't even talk about PJ Tucker. You didn't even mention PJ Tucker when you talked about Miami. How dare you?
I know, I am the worst.
How dare you? But I think the Bucks, and we said it when we did their episode, they had a quiet offseason, and when you're the defending champs, the best offseason to have is a quiet offseason. They kind of they're ready. They're going to be right in it. Now, it's difficult to repeat. We all know how difficult it is to repeat as NBA champs. Not everybody is the Golden State Warriors dynasty. I don't think, as much as it pains me to say this, I don't think the Bucks have a Warriors dynasty type run in them.
Whoa.
I think they can win back-to-back, but the reality is is the NBA now is tougher overall than it was when the Warriors went on their run. So I don't think they can do a 3 and 4 years type of thing. So yeah, they're number
no,
one.
I definitely think. Yeah, and I mean, like I said in the beginning, I think there's too much parity for that. They're not going to be able to cruise through, and it's going to be a hard-fought fight. And yeah, I think it's going to be tough for any team to try to do that. All right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. All right, do you think I'm going to be chalky with this? No.
You have one more. Did you just black out the entire thing? Because you have one more row blacked out than me. Did I do something?
I just put a space in right here. That's why.
I was like, okay.
All right. So I'll go through mine first, I guess. Round 1, I have the Bucks over the Raptors. I have the number 2 Heat over the 76ers. I have the Bulls over the Hawks in round 1. And then I have the Nets over the Celtics. I really wanted to put the Celtics over the Nets, and I think that would be a really fun series to watch. And I mean, one of the reasons too I have the Celtics over the Hawks too is the combination of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown is better than anything the Hawks have. I mean, I'd rather have that combo than John Collins and Trae Young, which I think some people would disagree with. But not to say they're bad, but I just think the talent level that Tatum and Young. Tatum and Brown have the potential to be the best 1-2 punch in the entire league if they live up to all of their upside and potential. So, they just keep getting better and better. So, I honestly was really close to putting the Celtics over the Nets, but I think that's disrespectful to Harden and KD, for being honest about it. And then I have the Suns over Clippers, which if Kawhi came back would be a really fun series. Denver over. Actually, I switched the numbers on that. It's actually 2 Jazz, but. The Jazz over 7 Portland, and then 3-seeded Denver over the 6-seeded Warriors, which I think would be a good series as well. And then in the wildest, I have the Lakers losing in the first round of the playoffs to the Dallas Mavericks, with Luka having a huge series.
All right. Ooh, those are some spicy. That's some
spicy. I like it. I hate chalk. Nobody likes chalk picks.
I mean, for me, the Bucks over, and this is where, now is when I kind of went with who's going to make the 7 and 8, which I have the Bulls and the Hornets claiming the 7 and 8 spot. So maybe this is a dream come true for me in a way to see LaMelo against my Bucks. I mean, that's a dream matchup for me. I don't think
would you be upset if the Bucks lost? I don't think you would, honestly.
I mean, man, where does my allegiance lie? I'm just kidding. It's gonna be my team. LaMelo is one guy. I'm not a Hornets fan. I just like LaMelo. The Hawks over the Bulls. I mean, this is a situation. I love the Hawks. I think the Bulls are just a year away. Heat over the Sixers. I mean, you know what? Surprisingly, I think I love the Heat more than you love the Heat, which is surprising. And then Nets over Celtics. Same as you. I wanted to pick the Celtics over the Nets, but there's being chalk, and then there's just getting too cute. I think picking the Nets to lose in the first round would just be that's being too cute.
That's kind of like picking the Lakers to lose in the first round. That would just be stupid.
Oh, I wonder who did that. But and then in the West, I mean, the Suns. I don't think the Suns go from making the finals to losing in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think that, to me, if that happened, that would signal that last year was like fluky, and I don't think last year was fluky for the Suns. So I don't think they go out in the first round as number 1 seed. Jazz over the Mavericks. Look, I mean, the Mavericks are going to make the playoffs, but they're a first-round exit because the reality is as long as their pairing is Porzingis and Luka, they're not going anywhere. That's the reality. I don't think that pairing works in the end. The Lakers over the Nuggets. I mean, look, will the Lakers win the championship? Spoiler, I do not have the Lakers winning the championship.
Yay!
But at the same time, I mean, I think it's a little silly to say the Lakers with I mean, now if we're going into the playoffs and only one of their guys, superstars, is healthy, then maybe you can see them losing in the first round. But I think for me, it's the same situation is if they have at least two of their superstars healthy and available in the playoffs, they're not gonna be a first round exit. I don't see that happening. And then the Warriors over the Clippers. That's my upset of the my technical upset of the first round.
Okay.
Obviously Clay's going to be back at some point this year, and if there's one guy in a situation that doesn't really need any time to kind of gel, it's going to be Klay Thompson. I don't think Klay Thompson really needs any time to find a connection with Steph Curry. I don't think
No, you don't think so?
I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. So I think, not saying the first game he comes back, he's gonna instantly score 35 points or anything like that. But I do think by the time the playoffs roll around, he'll have enough games under him where the Warriors are gonna be fine.
Oh, I mean, if anybody makes it this far to see me pick the Lakers lose in the first round, I mean, people will absolutely lose their marbles, and I'm okay with that. I like when people lose their marbles. So, all right, let's go to the second round then. All right. I got the Bucks over the Nets, and I have the Heat over the Bulls. And like I said, that was very, very tough for me because I so badly wanted to pick the Bulls over the Heat, but I love that combination. And if this was year two, I think the Bulls would be one of my early favorites for the next season to make it all the way to the championship. But year one, I don't think I'm ready for that kind of commitment. So I have the Bucks and the Heat, and then in the Western Conference, I have the Suns going back to the Western Conference Finals, facing the Utah Jazz.
All right. I mean, those are at least now you're making a little more sense. I mean, for me, obviously the Bucks over the Nets. I mean, the reality is I mean, this is gonna be this. I think it would be another classic series in my opinion. Where it's just that I think the Bucks would be able to take it again. Look, this one pained me because I just spoke so very highly of the Hawks and defended them against your low ranking, and then I have them losing in the second round to Miami. All that.
That's lame.
The second round. To me, I think that comes down to I like the Heat a touch more because I think that once they click, which will be relatively soon based on what we've seen in the preseason, I think they have the formula to really make a deep playoff run. They can easily make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, which I have them doing. And then, look, here we go, and the Warriors.
There's your upset.
The Warriors rolling again over Phoenix. I mean, look, the reality is this has all the shades of this. I mean, this has the makings of the Warriors finals teams prior to Kevin Durant. I think they have a very similar construction. I think this team is built to win. They have the depth, they have the youth, they have Steph. They'll have Clay back at some point. Draymond's still there, and I just think they're hungry. I think Clay's hungry. I think the Splash Brothers are gonna make their return and electrify the league again.
They're hungry and they're gonna eat, baby.
And then this is the Jazz over the Lakers. I mean,
I'm shocked that you did that.
What?
I'm shocked that you did that, but
are you? I think this is the point where the Lakers' health is gonna get them. The reality is the Jazz are locked down defensively. And if you're the Lakers, in order to overpower them, on that end, they're going to need all three. And I don't think that all three will be healthy at this time in the playoffs. For you don't even have them making it out of the first round. Craziness.
That's how much I hate this pairing, and this trio, and I don't think it'll work.
At least I gave them a little respect and gave them the second.
Nope, no respect.
But yeah, I think it's the matter of I just think the injuries are going to get them at that point.
Okay, let's go to the conference finals then. All right, you have the Bucks going back. I have a brand new finals this year. The Miami Heat over the Bucks and the Utah Jazz over Denver. I think that the Heat and Bucks playing again in the conference finals and really playing again in the playoffs just makes this is going to start butting into a rivalry here, which I think makes it fun. I just think that this, once again, I think this feels like the kind of rivalry that's going to trade punches to me. I think both of these trios are really strong. I think they're built very similarly from top to bottom. Great coaching. I think they're both going to be great defensively. I think it would be a 7-game series if that was to happen. And I have the Heat not really upsetting, but I think the Heat win this round here. Then the Utah Jazz over Denver. Nobody would want to watch that conference finals. Everybody would be yawning.
Nobody
but that's
watch
okay.
that finals.
Literally nobody. But I think the Jazz have everything that you need. I mentioned in their episode, I am slightly concerned still about their third scoring. You could say their second scoring option if you want to be honest about it, because it's Jordan Clarkson. But I think collectively as a unit, they can make up for that weakness. Maybe they don't have a strong number 2, but they have a strong number 2 to 10. And when you put that together collectively, the way that this team plays as a unit, I think that they can overcome. And we keep saying, this team's not deep and injuries and yada yada. The one team I'm not worried about that with is the Utah Jazz, who are the deepest team in the league in my opinion. One of the best three. They were the best 3-point shooting team. Good coaching. They have everything that you need to make it. So I don't know why people aren't picking them to go all the way. I scrolled through tons of predictions before we did this, and nobody had them going this far. So why not? I think they have all the elements.
Yeah, I'm over with them making the conference finals. That's something.
I'm happy. That makes me happy.
Yeah. We have the same. We have the same East finals with a different result. So that's something. We're same there. The Warrior. Look, it's the Warriors' time. I think Clay is right. Clay is ready and he's hungry. I think this is the Warriors' chance to make it back to the finals. You got so much uncertainty. As great as the West is, you got a lot of these upper teams with question marks. And I think this is an opportunity. While the Warriors have a question mark of their own, I think once Clay comes back, I think it's not saying it'll be instant day one. Okay, now they're the Splash Brothers of old, and they're the Warriors of old, and they're going to coast like they did in previous years. But I think once they're clicked, I think they can take off. And so that it's the Warriors' time in my opinion. That's the reality.
All right, the Splash Brothers are back.
Oh,
so I'm assuming you have them.
Just do it.
All right, you have the Warriors winning it all. I have boring is back, baby. The Jazz win it all over the Miami Heat.
I don't want to talk about mine. Just talk about yours, and we'll end it.
The Bucks losing. That's very brave of you.
Just go.
But
go.
Yeah, I've talked about the Jazz a million times. I think it's the reality of this team is they just remind me quite a bit of the Pistons. I think when Ben Wallace used to anchor that defense, Rudy Gobert does the same for them. Donovan Mitchell's a higher level player than anyone that was on that team, but they had depth, they had defense, they played as a unit. They had great coaching, which Quinn Snyder's very, very underrated still to this day when we talk about the best head coaches in the league. And once again, shout out to Eric Spoelstra for making it again to the finals here in my bracket. But great coaching, great defense, great 3-point shooting, great depth. I have a check I had boxes that I was trying to check for my champion this year. I did it last. We both picked the Bucks to win last year. I forget who you picked them over. I picked them over the Clippers, which honestly wasn't that far off. If Kawhi didn't get hurt, that we could have saw that finals. But I have boxes that I check off, and the Jazz check off every box for me this year. So I have the Jazz taking home the crown to redeem Karl Malone and John Stockton never winning one.
Yeah, I mean everything you said makes sense. I just once you took off the black and I actually looked at my prediction, I'm just sad. But the reality is this is the Warriors' time. The Warriors, I think the Warriors realize that their dynasty is over, but I don't think they're done. I think Steph Curry gets another ring. And I honestly think it'd be this year with so many question marks around everybody else. And look, Klay is the huge X factor. I think Klay's injury is the biggest injury out of anybody in the league. Because we're talking about if Klay wasn't here, if Klay was out the season again, the Warriors are a bubble borderline playoff team and a first round exit. And I think he takes them from that to winning the championship. This is the same guy that dropped 37 in a quarter. I mean, 37 in a quarter. That's a lot of points in one. That's a lot of points in one quarter.
Nobody can say that you're not loyal, Caveman. I will give that to you.
I mean, the reality is it's so difficult to repeat. I mean, that sounds cliche to say, but the reality is, can the Bucks repeat? Absolutely, because they won the championship for a reason. They really have all the elements. You talk about the Jazz checking all the boxes. I think Milwaukee double checks all the boxes. Whatever boxes you have.
Well, I think the Jazz triple check them.
Okay. Okay. You just can't.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the Warriors' time. I think it's this year.
You really think it's the Warriors' time?
Yes.
You're committed to that? I mean,
I am committed. I will die on this hill that the Warriors are winning the championship.
I'm committing right now that at the end of the season, when we crown a new champion, I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to look at this together, and we are going to laugh. We're going to cry. We're going to jump up and down with joy. Probably not that as much as crying.
I swear to God, if the Thunder make the playoffs, I'm done. We're not.
I will never ever speak of basketball again. I will pretend I've never watched the sport in my life.
We will delete the YouTube channel. We will get rid of any evidence that we ever did any NBA.
But here you have it. I scrolled back up to the top here so you can see our final standings. I'll scroll back down here so you can see our playoffs. But that is Dr. Fantasy and the Fantasy Caveman's predictions for this upcoming season. I'm pretty confident that one of us will be 100% correct because that's how predictions work.
Yeah.
Yep. But like I said, I think that actually would be fun. I've never seen anyone do that, but I'd like to pull these back up. And the reason I made this a tab is because I want to do this every year. And one of the things that I try to do is learn from when you're really wrong on predictions to see how you can adjust it moving forward. I
think another thing would be interesting is similar to what we did with the draft. I think we should do
scoring
something like that for scoring as far as the seeding goes. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm all for it. We'll come up with something, and I'll claim my prize at the end of the year.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's like I said, I'm excited for this NBA season more than I mean, I'm always excited for the NBA season, but I love when there's parity. Whenever, I mean, the 4 straight years it was the Cavs and Warriors. I just want to roll my eyes every season because it was not, honestly, it wasn't a fun time in the NBA, in my opinion. So I'm glad we're getting back to it being more.
We're getting back to the Warriors making the finals.
And as soon as we know it, the Spurs will be back there too. So, and everything will be right in the world again.
There. I mean,
not this season or the next or the next.
Your beard might be like Greg Popovich's by the time the Spurs make it back.
No, Becky Hammond will take them back to the promised land.
Greg Popovich might be gone by the time they make it. He might no longer be with us by the time they make it back to the finals.
Josh Primo's grandchildren will be in the league probably, but
you said not watch Josh Primo go on a run like win Rookie of the Year or some shit.
I hope
You'll feel very bad about yourself.
I've never wanted to be more wrong about a draft pick in my life. I just don't see it. But all right, I think that's it then for this episode. Make sure you guys like the channel on YouTube. Make sure you like this video, like us, follow us everywhere. We appreciate you guys watching. The season is here. Hope everybody enjoys opening night, and we'll see you next time.